Okay, welcome back to the main section of today's podcast, where I'm joined by Brett from Monetopia. Hello, Brett.
Hello.
Hello, how are you today?
Not doing too bad, not doing too bad. Chilling.
Good to hear. So, we've got quite a bit to talk about because I've actually been on the podcast with your manager slash promoter, Phil,
Yes.
before. And I've heard a lot about you then, but there's been some things have changed and stuff like that. So, because I know you had a sort of a demo out as a single for people to hear back at that point in time, and now you've
Mhm.
got a new single out, which we'll obviously talk about, which came out in July time, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we do that, let's talk about some of your influences growing up and things like that, and how you kind of got the musical bug. Anyway, we should ask actually, what's your role in the band as well? Actually, first.
Okay, so I'm the drummer. Um, I have done a little bit of uh, writing of some of the riffs. In Monetopia, we like talk to each other about what we like, what we don't like. So it's kind of like a group effort, even with guitar and bass and vocals and stuff. Even though I'm the drummer, I've had my hand in, talking to the others about certain riffs and certain tones and stuff with the guitar.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, no, it's always good to hear how bands that dynamics work, and yeah,
Mhm.
as Phil was saying when he was last on, Monotopia is very much a collaborative effort between all the band members, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, actually, let's talk more about the band actually before we start talking about other things. Can you introduce the rest of the band as well for people who don't know who they are?
Okay, yeah. So we've got Kai, who is our lead singer slash like lead guitarist. Joe is our rhythm guitarist, and then we have Will on bass.
Excellent, perfect. So all the band members there, and can you introduce the genre for people as well, best you can, for those who haven't heard Monotopia?
Yeah, so it's a bit of like a mix, in my opinion, because we've all got our own influences. Um, so I would say it's like groovy thrash metal in a way, because we've got the thrashy Pantera, Megadeth inspired riffs from our guitarists, but then my influences are very much like the grunge '90s Alice in Chains, Soundgarden stuff.
Well,
Um,
let's talk about those influences then. So, for yourself, how did you get that musical bug growing up? When did that start?
for me, it was probably when I was maybe about 10 or 11. We got Guitar Hero 3
Mm,
on the Wii,
yeah.
and from then on, obviously, I was introduced to all kinds of rock and metal music. But it wasn't until probably like midway through secondary school, like 15, 16 maybe, when Kai introduced me to Alice in Chains. So
Mm.
that's sort of like where I ended up getting that inspiration from. But
So
it
as
hasn't been too long.
yeah, so as a band, you met in school in theory.
So yeah, me and Kai met in school, and Joe had been friends with Kai because they live on the same street for like a
Mm.
while, for like their whole childhood essentially. So what ended up happening was Kai knew Joe a lot. I met Kai in school, and then I met Will in university studying music. So
Ah,
yeah, that's
okay.
where that all comes together. I mean, it wasn't until after a few years of being out of school and not speaking to Kai much when I popped up to him and said, "Do you want to like start like a proper band thing going?" And he agreed, and then brought Joe, and then I brought Will later on.
It's a classic rock band story that you meet at school, isn't it? But I
Yeah.
feel nowadays we don't hear that story so often, so it's quite refreshing to hear it from yourself. When did you start? I assume you started drumming around that time, I guess, but forgive me if I'm wrong. But when did you start, drumming and becoming a musician?
Yeah, so originally, obviously, Guitar Hero 3, I wanted to be a guitar player. Um, but then I naturally gravitated towards the drums, I feel.
Mm.
My dad was a drummer back when he was younger. Um, so he had a lot of the kit in the loft and stuff. We had an electric kit that he brought. And originally, as I said, I was playing guitar and having guitar lessons.
Mm.
And then one day, again, Kai asked me to be in a band, and I said he already had like a guitar player and stuff himself and another one. And I said, I'll play the drums, even though I'd never like actually properly ever played. I think I had a mess around on my dad's electric kit at home, and so I naturally just I felt the rhythm of the drums, and in
Mm,
one guitar lesson, my tutor turned around and said, "You play the guitar like a drummer, so
mm.
why don't you just do drum lessons from now on?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll give it a go," and that stuck with me from there.
That's fair enough. I mean, so I guess when obviously you practice for however many years, right? But then
Yeah.
Monetopia is a post university event, right? Am I correct with that?
So yeah, it was this thing where I went to a music college,
Mm,
um, and after school, and again, me and Kai, we kind of stopped speaking for that whole kind of period.
mm,
But it was after I came out of college, which would have been like late 2018. Obviously, I said to Kai, you want to start a band, and he said yes. Brought Joe along, and it was just a three piece for many years throughout all of
mm,
COVID. Three piece. This was obviously before we were gigging, and it was more of
mm,
just we were playing for fun with each other. We were writing songs because
mm,
it was something that we were enjoying. And then I went to university because of COVID. I was like, hopefully in a year or two it'll be gone. So I'll go to
mm,
uni, 2-year course. It will clear up by then. For the first year, it was mostly online stuff, but
mm,
second year was on campus, and then again that's where I met Will.
mm.
So it was this thing where I was playing with Monetopia, just having a bit of fun. Met Will and said, "Oh, we need a bassist." Um, so yeah, after we kind of all graduated and finished uni, Will joined the band, and then again that's sort of where we met Phil as well, and then Phil started getting us some gigs, and yeah, that's where the four piece ended up coming from.
We need to talk about gigs actually because you guys are quite prolific when it comes to playing live shows.
Yeah.
Obviously, I see them come up on my Instagram a lot because I follow you guys and have been since I spoke to Phil.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, you got to tell us more about what is the Monotopia live show like?
Oh, it's an interesting one because it's a mix of depending on what songs we play, but it's sort of a mix of this very heavy,
Mm,
groovy, intense show of like the whole time it's quite an intense, um, like whole set of music. But we have our song "Complicated Her," which we
mm,
hope to release soon, which it has this like acoustic main body of the song where it's acoustic. It's quite light electric guitar, and Kai he actually sings instead of being a bit shouty and raw. Um, so yeah, it's a mix of different things, and that's what we try and do. It's we try again. It's like bits of grunge in there as well, and it's just all of our influences coming out on stage, flowing into people's ears, I guess.
yeah, no, definitely. It's when I see the videos online, it does seem very high energy,
Yeah.
very loud, heavy. It's what you want from a kind of like a metal gig, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, but again, as I said, we do have the lighter songs for people who aren't necessarily
Mm.
interested in all of that heaviness for a whole like half an hour or 40 minutes. We like to, keep it a bit bright sometimes.
Well, I feel there's an element of that in your new single, which we'll get onto in a minute, and I'll circle back to that.
Mhm.
I want to also talk about the music as well, because ultimately that's the most important thing when it comes to speaking to an artist. And I want to talk about who does the songwriting because I know you say it's very collaborative. Who is like the primary songwriter, or is it all together, or how does that dynamic work?
It's definitely very much in terms of lyrics and melody. It is Kai, the lead
Mm,
singer. He the guitarists, including him, kind
mm,
of come up with a riff. I come up with a drum beat. Maybe I'll. This is me explaining how it was
mm,
when we started. Just playing for fun. Um, they'd come to me with a riff. I'd come up with a drum groove. We'd jam it for about 2 hours in the studio, and who knows, maybe that would end up with a new part of the song
Mm.
or like a finished song. And then Kai would definitely go away and then come back at the next rehearsal and be like, oh, I've got a bit of a melody or lyrics to this song. And then it would be kind of after playing the song for a bit, I would maybe turn around and go, that guitar riff there could be like, you could chug that bit or change the
Mm.
rhythm up for that bit and match it with the drums. And then they'd say, yes or no, or we'd talk it out. So yeah, it's main melody and lyrics Kai, but then a lot of the other music, it tends to be, what we all feel is best.
Yeah, I get the sense of that, especially in the new track, because the new track is there's a lot of variety to it, which again I will talk about in a bit. I do also want to ask actually about the subject matters of the music that comes out. Is there anything that Monotopia as a band do like to write about, or any themes that are common across the music, or can it literally just come from anywhere?
I think it honestly just comes from anywhere. What is, because obviously Kai does the writing. It's what he feels in the moment. Some of the lyrics
Mm,
he's had for a very long time. So some of
mm,
it, it might relate to how he felt years and years and years ago.
yeah.
And I mean, another example of where it can just be a bit sporadic is the song Jupiter, which
Mm,
another track that we want to release soon as well. Um, and Jupiter is literally just about trying to survive the storms of Jupiter,
mm,
which isn't really like a feasible thing in reality, but
yeah.
it's got like, a bit of a metal vibe to it, and it's a very heavy song. So again,
Yeah.
yeah, lyrics, I don't think we necessarily have a theme that we write about, but who knows, maybe in the future we'll have an album that focuses.
Yeah, as in like a concept album type thing.
Yeah,
I
maybe,
mean,
maybe.
yeah. Well, we'll talk about the new track.
Okay.
Because originally you had, and I believe from my talk with Phil that the idea of this being on streaming services was to allow people to get just a taste of the band in some way, shape, or form. So
Yeah.
there was a demo up there originally, but now we have a fully fledged track that's fully made and produced, and it's called
Yes.
Switched Off. And congratulations on the song, by the way.
Thank you.
It's I really like this tune as well because of how varied it is. It's kind of like when you said about how there's a mixture in a Monotopia show
Yeah.
for those who like it heavy and those who like it less heavy. This song is less heavy, but at the same time, it is heavy because it's varied, isn't it? It's got almost like sections where there's raw shoutiness, there's
Yeah.
it just gets
Indeed.
raucous, and then it's a lot more melodic and peaceful at other times. Can you tell us more about the song, what it's about, and how it came to be?
Yeah, so again, it's been a few years since we wrote the song. I mean, it's one of those where we've been gigging and playing these songs as they are
Mm,
now for so long that it's a little bit tricky for me to recall of how they started and
yeah.
where they started from. But from what I remember, again, Kai's lyrics were from this track in particular was from a long time ago, I think.
Mm,
Um, and this with a lot of our music, it probably just started as the chorus riff
mm,
was probably what was brought into the studio, and then after jamming for 2 hours, maybe a few rehearsal sessions over like a month maybe of just jamming that song. um Joe would maybe show up and be like, "Oh, I've got like the next bit of this song," or maybe we figured it out in the studio after jamming for a few hours. Sometimes we did 3 hour sessions just straight on a lot of our music to just try and figure out the next part of the song, and that's sort of just how they formed. It was a bit of a mixture of them going away and coming back, or
mm.
me coming up with a drum beat that would work, after that riff, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'll write a guitar riff to that, and see if it fits in the song." So yeah, all of our songs have like, I mean, they all kind of got like different ways they were formed. That's sort of the gist of it, is a mixture of different ways.
Yeah, it's a question, something that I want to ask actually, based on what you said there. Is obviously you've been playing this song for years. What's it like going into a recording studio with a song that you've been playing for years? Because I feel like obviously you can go in and do it straight live in the studio, but then obviously you've got your overdubs and things like that. What's it like to be? Is it like a liberating kind of creative thing where you get this song that you know so well, but you can add to it and do extras, you can play around with it, do whatever, or or is it a bit difficult because you sit there thinking, well, we have this song that's so perfect that what do we want to do with it that we can do in the studio that won't detract from that potentially and things like that. What's it like?
Yeah, well, first off, in my opinion, it's really fun. I
Mm,
actually do enjoy going to the studio. It's one of those things that, you don't really know how the song is going to sound before it's recorded. And
mm,
obviously you want the song to sound incredible recorded because that's like, that's the finished product
mm,
that's gonna, go out to everyone's ears. Um, but yeah, it's fun in my opinion, and having that that time of, you know, everyone doing a separate bit. I mean, for me, it was we did this crazy weekend where one day it was all day in the studio recording drums, then a gig afterwards.
mm,
Then the next day it was recording drums all day in the studio and then another gig. So
mm.
it was quite a full-on weekend of just recording drums and then playing. Um, but like afterwards, it felt like that was the life like that we want. We're basically playing music all day, every day for that weekend, and it was really liberating, and it felt good.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it tends to be that when we go in, it's when we think about adding something that might not be there live, it tends to
Yeah,
be, it's what the song feels like it needs. So we'll
yeah,
listen back to it, with just the bare bones, drums, guitar, bass,
mm,
um, and then he'll record lyrics and like, oh, maybe do a take where you change that, or
mm,
maybe let's later on we'll add this, and it tends to be like a creative process,
mm.
like writing a song when we're in the studio as well. I mean, we have these finished songs we've been playing live for years, but once we're in the studio, it is just a case of, "Ooh, that could sound cool if we added this," or I mean, there's been a few cases where we've removed a few of the things we've added because it just hasn't worked in the
Yeah,
mixing process. But a lot of the time, it just feels like our brains are just, wired to add things and be a bit more creative with the
yeah.
with the, powers that we've got in the studio.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you don't have the focus on an audience as well when you're in there, so
That's
there's
it.
no
Yeah.
distractions, it's just pure creativity. A question I wanted to ask as well from there was any new additions and some changes that happen to the tracks. I assume you try and take them into the live performance then afterwards?
Yes, definitely. If so, Kai originally with the solo for Switched Off in particular, it was a case of he would play something similar to what we recorded in the studio, um,
Mm,
but he never fully had every live show. He never fully had a solo nailed down.
mm,
But when we went into the studio, he came in and was like, "Oh, I've planned this solo. I know
mm,
exactly what I'm gonna do." And then from now on, in the live shows, Kai 100% like plays that solo.
mm,
And it's things like that, with the drums, there's maybe some fills that I did
mm,
just playing like a one take I did this fill, one take I did that fill. And then once we've kind of edited a little bit and put in the fills that I like in certain places, it's like now I will most likely try to add those fills in, just to get closer to the recording because they're in my opinion again what the song kind of needs in that bit. That fill works really well. Um,
mm.
so yeah, it's more stuff like that. It's at the moment I don't think it's much of like an added percussion bit that I'm going to try and add live. Maybe like with a backing track, you'd add a bunch
Mm.
of different things. Like we're not really the type of band that have backing tracks or electronic stuff.
Yeah.
Right now, we love our big beefy amps and
Mm.
cabs. We don't like using um, samples and backing tracks with
Yeah.
our music. So if there's any percussion stuff added to the tracks in the studio, you probably won't hear that live. But any creative things,
Yeah.
from the bassist doing like a little bit of a solo bit in one of the
Mm.
songs, so we add that live.
Yeah. No, it's great to see songs evolving, you know, it's one thing that Bob Dylan always does, isn't it? He evolves his songs as time goes on, and,
Mhm.
you know, it's like they're living, breathing organisms kind of thing, and, so
Yeah.
it's always great to see that happen. One question I wanna ask as well, to you is, I ask this to some artists, I don't ask it to all artists. I feel like you as a band are probably in place to give an answer to this question.
Okay.
Um, so as far as I'm aware, you're from the Midlands, aren't you, in the
Yeah.
UK?
All
Which is
Birmingham area.
all around Birmingham, yeah. So it's a
Yeah.
rich heritage area for heavy metal and rock music, effectively. The question I want to ask is, do you feel that a sense of place or where you're from um, affects the way you make your music, you play live, the music that comes out, for example?
I mean, maybe subconsciously, because obviously being from Birmingham, the birthplace
Mm,
of metal and Black Sabbath, and you know all of the history that it has
yeah.
with just music in general. You know, I hear stories from my dad all the time, like, "Oh, I've been to see this band," or "I've done."
Yeah.
He's done lighting for a couple of other bands in a
Mm,
lot of the venues around Birmingham.
yeah.
Um, so there's definitely like the history here that maybe subconsciously
Mm,
we've ended up, you know, being inspired by. But I don't think we think about it too much because we just love to play music. Really,
yeah.
it doesn't really matter where we're playing, who we're playing to, how many we're playing to. It's just something that we really enjoy doing and want to continue doing forever. So yeah,
Well, that
I love
that
Birmingham, but
kinda
yeah.
that kinda leads on to what I was gonna ask next, which was what is the future for Monotopia? You kind of already alluded to this a bit, but what's in the pipeline?
Yeah, so hopefully soon we'll have a couple more tracks out as a single.
Mhm.
And then the album, we've fingers crossed, don't hold me to it, we'll hopefully have it out by December, at some
Oh,
point in
nice.
December, you know, have it for Christmas. That's the
Mhm.
idea. We also feel that the type of album it just feels special with December of 2025. You know, that's
Mm.
how we feel. So I mean, let's hope it comes out in 25. We are on track. Believe it or not, I'm actually going into the studio tomorrow with the lads to look at some mixes and get some stuff, you know, finalized. So yeah, we are very very close for more music to come out. So you know, keep your ears open.
Yeah, very much looking forward to that as well, and, yeah, when you said the album's coming so soon, that my ears perked up because 'cause I'm definitely an album person, so,
Oh
that's
yeah,
my ears
full
officially
album.
perked. Yeah.
There's some surprises on there. We've tried to again with like going into the studio and being very creative.
Mm.
There's definitely some creative decisions which I feel like will surprise people if they've heard our music live. That could that I think sounds
Mm.
really cool. But you
Well
have to wait and see for that.
well, talking of live as well, this episode is coming out on Monday in the future for us here recording, so, have you got any live shows up and coming that you want to let people know about?
Yeah, so October's fairly stacked for us in a sense.
Mm.
We've got a gig on the 11th. I believe that is in Mansfield
Mhm.
at it's like a sports rock bar. It's quite a cool place, really awesome. We played there before. Everyone enjoyed us, and I had a great time to be honest. Um, Recently, we've just got a gig announced on October 17th at the Flapper in Birmingham.
Mhm.
We love playing the Flapper. We've played there a few times, and it's just always a good night. Um, and then Thursday, the 23rd, I think we have another gig um, in Branbury.
Ah.
Now, if I've got those wrong and I've got them mixed up, it's either Mansfield on the 23rd or
Mm.
Banbury on the 11th. Yeah, it's one of these things where it's like we've got so many gigs in the pipeline now they kind of get a bit jumbled up. So keep your
Banbury's
eyes out.
somewhere I know well. Banbury's somewhere I
Oh,
know well.
okay.
It's very surprising. I've got family in Banbury, so I do know
Oh,
Banbury
nice.
quite well. I actually don't
Bring
know
them
where there's
down.
any music venues in there. That's the thing. Where are you playing in Banbury?
It's called the again. It's called the Wheat Chief, the Wheat Chef. I
Oh,
don't know
I
how
know.
you say it.
Yeah, I know the Wheat Chef. I know
That's
very
it.
well. It's nice. I think it's a pub. I think
Oh,
with a
nice.
venue in it. I think it's got a venue. Not 100% because I think it's got a back
Well, we're
area
playing.
that I've not been in. So I think it's got a music venue of some sorts because I've not been out the back. It's a very nice
Let's
place
hope.
anyway. Um, But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on to Music
No, thank
Fishbowl.
you.
I'm gonna give you a chance to let everybody know where they can find Monetopia online and all the socials and all the gigs if they do need to go and look it up because they don't want to scroll back and listen again to the bit
Yeah.
where you just said it all. So you let people know where they can find all of that.
Yeah, so if I did get it wrong, just check our Instagram, which is just Monetopia. It's spelled exactly the same as you would see it on posters and stuff.
Mhm.
We've got Facebook, we've got our Instagram, we've got TikTok. Check out our TikTok. As well as if you want to listen to Switched Off, it's on all streaming platforms, so Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. It's on all of their. I mean, if you were to find our Instagram and give us a follow, there's a link tree link in our description, which will take you to literally all the other links. So yeah, if you just look us up, you should find us quite easy.
Excellent, perfect. Yep, I will put all links and things in the description below as well for people to make it nice and easy to go there. But Brett, I just want to thank you so much for coming on to Music Fishbowl. We'll wrap up
No,
quickly after the recording, but thank you so much for coming on today.
well, no, thank you, thank you. This is great. I had a great time talking to you.
No problem. You too.